Okay.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Barry Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. And today I have my highest conviction gold explorer with an important discovery. And I think that's important to point out the qualification there of a gold explorer with an important discovery. There's lots of gold explorers out there. There's even a fair amount of gold explorers with important discoveries. But I only have one in my report because when I look at a company in a certain category, I try to stick to the best. And when it comes to gold explorers with important discoveries, I think Goliath has the best one in their Sherbet discovery. In fact, I think it could rival the greatest gold discovery ever made in the Golden Triangle, which was the SK Creek mine, and really put the Golden Triangle on the map. So, Roger, you've hit the ground running in the 2025 drilling campaign. Actually, it even started before the new drilling started. Great to have you on.
Thanks, Alan. Always a pleasure to chat with you about the progress and the success we've been having at the site so far this year. It's funny. The people are kind of caught off guard, saying, "Well, what's going on?" We've been talking about this, you and I, Alan. That the first job priority was to go and relog a bunch of these holes that were never really looked at, for the main reason being that the Eocene aged dikes, the granitoids, were, as far as the historical narrative of current past explorers, the British Columbia Geological Surveys, these granitoids were barren of any kind of mineralization. So guess what? Why the heck are you gonna waste your time when you've got, 40,000 meters of core coming off the hill and you're focused on galena, sphalerite, pyrrhotite, pyrite, which was, the initial discovery that we had at Sherbet. And lo and behold, we got lucky last year with finding, bismuth, moly, and visible gold that we could see with a naked eye, the VGNE, in these reduced intrusive dikes, which was pretty impressive. So, with that, over the off season, we sent quite a bit of material to the Colorado School of Mines, in particular the reduced intrusive dike material, as well as some other samples, i.e., hole number 249 that we drilled that did run high grade gold.
Roger,
Uh,
I want to deal with that, but before we go into that, I
mhm.
don't think people really understand the process of exploration. Um,
Okay.
and
Well,
for
people need to remind it this is a grassroots discovery. It's never been drilled before. Guess
exactly,
what? It's like a newborn child, and you learn about new things about it every day, every year. So it's not like you can kind of go in and someone's been working this for the last 20 years and kind of figured it out. We're figuring things out in real time. And people have
and
I
so
guess,
when you do that, Roger, you look at the technical reports that are out there for the area, and you sort of base your thinking on what you're seeing in the drill core. But what people don't understand is that you guys were having tremendous success with the gently dipping veins. And then you look at the technical side of the research that had been done, and it said, well, the Eocene reduced intrusion related dikes are kind of meaningless. And so you've got these thousands of meters that your guys have to log. And, you can't look at every millimeter of the core when you're talking about that much volume. And
yeah.
so I just thought it was important to bring that into context about how you go about exploration, folks.
Yeah. Well, every year you drill, the more you find out about it, and that's another piece of the puzzle. And again, just with the research that we did in the off season, The team looking at, 92,000 meters of core, looking at it multiple times, looking for similarities in relation to the textures. And I go back to that hole 249 because now we have gold in a third package of rocks with this calc silt altered breccia, which we didn't really give too much look at it. But ultimately, hole 249 that we had looked at again under microscope and so on, throwing some uh, some smart people in the labs to look at this stuff really kind of gave us the idea, say, hey, we need to go back and look at a bunch of these holes that have similar looking type of textures, i.e. like hole 249, which is part of the bonanza, which kind of looked different from the typical bonanza of, the sphalerite, galena, pyrrhotite, pyrite, so on and so forth. So really, that was kind of the telltale for us in the off season, and obviously with the research at Colorado School of Mines in relation to this calc silt alta breccia plus the reduced intrusive style of mineralization. Kind of gave us the impetus to go and do this relogging program, which initially was only going to be 30 some odd holes, ended up being 75 holes now with almost 3,500 meters in total. So guess what? We got lots of core in the boxes and we're
You don't
relogging.
have
And
to go and drill those again. You got the
that
core
is
there,
correct.
right?
Yeah. So, and clearly we're seeing lots of VG. I think, we've already announced, quite a few holes already out of the gate with some decent grades. I think the first one being from the reduced intrusive style mineralization.
Roger, before we get into the recent news, I wanted to sort of harken back to if if I've got it right, you guys had been seeing the success that that Snowline was having up in the Yukon with their tremendous discovery of a reduced intrusion related gold system. And was that kind of an impetus of why you guys kind of took a closer look at that, your reduced intrusion related gold hits, and had that sent to the Colorado School of Mines to really investigate it last year?
Yeah, I mean the age, I think it's the Titina Gold Belt. That's their mineralization was set in place, I think, 100 million years ago.
Right.
And the difference with us is ours is Eocene, which is a much younger rock package of kind of 51 to 52 million years of age, which we had Colorado School of Mines, age date, everything. And really it was just a kind of they weren't reduced intrusive dikes until we actually found the gold. And then ultimately, they are this RIRG dikes now.
Well, you got to have the gold in them to make the IRG part of it.
Correct, correct. So again, we got lucky last year. One of the geos taking a look at this the style and cracked open one of the cores, and boom, there was a big chunk of moly and a big chunk of VG. So it's like, holy smokes, we need to go and relog a bunch of holes, which we did. Randall, their Karcher, the PhD student that we're one of the students we're currently sponsoring. Um,
At the Colorado School of
Colorado School of
Mines,
Mines.
and
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
also works on the project
Oh
sometimes.
yeah, no, he's a couple of them. We've got two. We sponsor a PhD student, which is Randall, and a master's student who are on site, who've been on site for the last couple of years. And with that, Randall went and kind of picked 13 holes that were previously drilled last year, six of which he discovered had, multiple occurrences of visible gold in them. And six of the 13 had VG and ran really good numbers. So again, it was just another piece of the puzzle like saying, hey, we really need to go back and look at every photo that we have and determine what are we going to relog coming out of the season. So we have the
But then
benefit again.
he also took that core and did some really fine, detailed analysis for the study. And what has me really excited is that you and I had a chat with him on an interview, and he showed some images of they're at what he calls the Goldilocks zones. I love that.
Yeah.
He saw two styles of two enrichments of gold in the Goldilocks zone, where
Yes.
the reduced intrusion cut across Bonanza, and he saw these two styles of gold, and that gets me excited because one, it enriches these jewelry box or Fort Knoxes, the Goldilockses, and there could be a massive amount of those because you've got like 14 or something of these vertical dikes and then about 14 of these layers of the cake.
Yeah.
So combined, you could have a whole bunch of Goldilocks zones.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. So the gold there that you're referring to in the reduced intrusive dikes, it comes from the hotter magma gold based on the studies that they did for us. And then the flat lying lodes or the flat lying ish lodes
The
have a
veins, yeah.
come from the cooler magma gold. So
Okay.
uh, and so but we do see the gold not necessarily always where they're cross cutting because again we did age date everything. It's all kind of 51 to 52 million years of age in a geological terms. That's kind of like over the weekend. So it was in place roughly around the same time. And so obviously they're connected somehow, and that's why we've got this causative intrusive mother lode where it could be sitting below. We think certainly that's what the signs are kind of pointing to is below the dikes and the various loads we have. But ultimately, it could be off to the west there at the that Hyder Pluton, which is just again adjacent to the Sherbet discovery. So I mean, we've got quite a few holes planned for this year to test the various theories. And if we drill into the intrusive body, great. If not, it's one hell of a discovery as is. So I'm not going to lose sleep over that.
Well, you can't, we got to see what the truth machine tells us, but, it's kind of overwhelming to a degree that a couple hundred holes into this, and you guys are still finding pleasant surprises of new discoveries.
Yeah.
And I mean, last year you had, an added interest in the reduced intrusion related gold. You've had for a few years the stacked veins that look great. I got a prediction for you, Roger, that I think what you're going to find is something similar to what you saw with the visible gold in the stacked veins. As you got further down into the system, at the top you saw sort of fine grained sporadic gold. Then
Mhm.
it turned into abundant fine grained gold. Then it turned
Yeah.
into abundant fine grained gold with coarse gold. And
Definitely.
so as you're following it down and towards the wherever it came from, you're getting more coarseness and more abundance of visible gold. And I think you're going to see the same thing in those vertical dikes. So far, you're at the very top of it, and you're getting actually abundant fine grained gold. And I think there's a chance that as you get deeper, you're going to get into more coarse grain uh, visible gold. How's that for a prediction?
I like it. So yeah, we multiple occurrences of the
Yep,
visible gold as we get further down, and also once further down, and again we say down, we're still above the valley floor, which is kind of crazy to think about, but
yep.
it's obviously fantastic to have that topography working in our favor. Is we're seeing less of the base metals, more bismuth, more telluride, and when we see the bismuth in this altered breccia with calc silt, it's a good one, and we're seeing as well. Some of the things we were looking at was the altered sandstone also with some bismuth as well. So it could contain, like you say, it could be some more nice upside surprises for us this year. So looking forward to getting the results from the relogging, and then obviously we're drilling away here. We got 8 rigs turning at the moment. We're gonna get 60,000 meters up to of drilling of
Before
news.
we get on to that, I got to bring you back. I got to bring you back. You just sort of went over something quickly there that's got me really excited, which is these altered breccias that are
Yeah.
sitting right below, about 50 meters below your best hits to date.
Actually, actually, Alan, they remodeled it, and actually, it's part of the Bonanza. It still sits in that contact, the news we put out here.
Oh,
Yeah. And initially we thought, but then after we looked at the model, it's part of the whole 197 and uh, sorry, kind of gapping here. But anyways, we had two high grade hits there, 6 meters, 9 meters of over an ounce. They're all at the same elevation, and it's about a 500-meter step out. Hole 249,
wow.
actually. And actually, it was 249.
Actually, it's in that it's very in that picture you have there, that
Yeah,
east so that eastling
there.
dipping big feet structure, you're very close to that
Yeah.
as well, right?
Yeah,
In
Alan.
that
So I mean,
new breccia.
texturally it looks different from the other Bonanza stuff that we're seeing. And again, it was hole 249 um, that looked different from the rest. Again, not having that high scaliness, sphalerite, so on and so forth, which led to us relogging all this calc silt altered breccia material, and hence, lo and behold, holy smokes, we're finding all this multiple occurrence of VG. Holes are running some big
You
widths
got
and
almost an
great.
ounce there over 4 meters, wasn't it? Yeah, an
Yeah,
ounce
yeah,
point two
yeah,
of over 4 meters. And look at
yeah,
that chunky VG in the
yeah,
core. I
yeah,
just got the news release up here behind you, Roger.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not
Yeah,
bringing it up. Do you want me to bring it up?
that's okay.
Okay.
But I would say that, I think what people need to do, if they're interested, is, our playbook is look at our June 23rd news release. We released this whole that we announced on the 7th has had, multiple occurrences of VG, good looking Calixil breccia,
And
altered
then
breccia, and
boom.
lo and behold, boom, here we go. 23 meters of 8.3 grams gold. And to that note, that is gold, not gold equivalent. So we don't
Yes,
have the multi-element yet.
right.
So that number could possibly increase depending on what's in there. Which, at a later date, once we do get the multi-element, we'll update that number in a future press release. So, think about that. That's gold, 8.3 grams, gold, 23 meters, including,
And it's
that
free
almost.
gold. It's something that you could get out of there with gravity separation.
Yeah, well, based on the folks at Colorado School of Mines, they feel that the metallurgy would be even superior to what we already have of that 92.2% of gold coming out of gravity flotation with the almost 50% just from the gravity alone. So I think that would again possibly increase that number. That's something that we'll be looking to update at some point later this year. Once we have enough material. But certainly I think it would be beneficial for or certainly visually and under the microscope, it looks like it should increase the recovery rates. But obviously we have to wait till
Well, it's
the
free
research is
gold. You
done.
can see it in the pictures, people. That's
Yeah,
you get that
true.
out of there. You get that chunky gold out of there with
Yeah.
gravity.
Yeah.
But
And that'll,
Roger, what's
yep.
got me really pumped up, and it doesn't take me much to get pumped up about Sherbet because I have been for a couple years calling it my highest conviction gold explorer with an important discovery is that now you've got that visible gold and that chunky gold in three distinct rock packages.
Yes.
That's amazing. Like,
Yeah.
well, you think about what is the powerful system that drove all of that gold into three distinct rock packages. It's got to be huge.
Well, yeah. Well, think about it. It's one point, we've outlined 1.8 square kilometers, or, area, and we know the veins, the stacked veins are, at least 1.2 kilometers from stacked vertically. So, whatever that engine was or is, would have to be significantly larger, I would believe. Probability would suggest that it would be a massive, massive body heat
Well,
engine that
because you
promised.
haven't found the limits of like you're still not at the end of the vertical or the flat stack veins.
Yes.
They kind of go one set goes this way and another set goes this
Yeah,
way. And if you kind of wave your arms to the end and still say it's open from there, that's a couple thousand meters.
it
And you
is.
still haven't found the edges of that. You haven't found the edges of the vertical uh, reduced intrusion related gold dikes. And now you've got this new thing coming up, which is the altered breccia.
Yeah, yeah. But just back to the dikes though, the fact that it does have that the hotter magma gold in it would indicate that whatever this intrusive body is most likely would have similar looking type of material as well. Certainly that's what some of the experts are talking about, but ultimately, we're gonna have to hopefully drill into that at some point and test it under with the truth machine. But again, at the end of the day, if we don't drill into the mother lode or the feeder, this thing is massive as is. So
But
I'm not.
Roger, you got 14 of these dikes coming up like this, where a good chance that the magma that it came from is deeper and not. Quentin Henney made an important point that I don't think a lot of people maybe have recognized in the quote in your last news release when he talked like this could the altered breccia is often at the areola, or think of it like an egg, if you will, or an onion on the outer layer of the onion. And so you've got the dikes coming like this. Now you've got that altered breccia over here. I think it's all pointing to not very far below the valley floor for a magmatic source.
I would agree, but as I like to personally do is under promise, over deliver. So at this point,
Okay,
we're gonna test some
let
theories.
me do the arm waving, Roger.
There you go. Perfect. And if we tag it, obviously it'd be awesome, and we'd be ecstatic to make that happen this year.
Yeah.
And but again, if it happens, great. If not, I'm not losing sleep over it because we have so much mineralization in the mountain, like I say, in these three different rock packages, which again, whatever created this is going to be a big, big system with, clearly much bigger, I would think, anyways, more than 1.8 square kilometers. So that would certainly be I'd say, a significant material event if and when that was to happen.
So right now, let's get into what's going on now. I've kind of kept bouncing you back and forth, but you mentioned earlier 8 rigs on the property right now, a spinning and another one to come.
Yeah, we'll have the ninth one will show up this week and should be turning by the weekend. So we'll have nine in total. The goal is to drill up to 60,000 meters or more. And fingers are crossed, Mother Nature works with us and we're able to make that happen.
So I guess you got the boys looking at every millimeter of core now that you're seeing it in every rock package. Maybe there's another distinct rock package there somewhere, Roger.
You know what, Alan? Like you say, sometimes you get some really nice upside surprises, and it wouldn't surprise me if we're seeing like maybe in the altered sandstone with the bismuth, because as you know with the bismuth, we typically see the VG associated with that, and as we're further down into the system, it's less of the base metals, less sulfides, and just more kind of the bismuth and moly and telluride type stuff. So super exciting, and then really. Even our first, I guess one of our first holes here, we announced that was on, when did we announce that? That was on pardon me, on the 2nd of July, where again, 95 meters of mineralization. Then within that, we've got multiple occurrences of visible gold, the VGNE, as we call it,
Yeah.
where, you've got a hit at, uh,
So those assays are pending, and you got a
those are
bunch of
pending on
different.
July 2nd. Here we go. Yeah, we had VG at 98 meters, 105, 122, 126, 148, 171.
Gee
So guess
whiz.
what? Let's take a look at our last hole that we just announced here, hole 280. We had 7 instances of VG, and there was, kind of spread out over a smattering, a nice distance there. So um, I
That's
expect,
another thing that's quite impressive about this. Roger, a lot of cases where companies talk about VG, it doesn't always come out at the rate that you guys put out when you see VG, and then when you get the assays back, it confirms what you saw. That doesn't always happen. Let me tell you for
no.
sure that doesn't always happen. So that's an amazing thing with Sherbet is that you see VG and it comes back with good assays.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we've proven that. And, with this hole from this year that we drilled, I expect to see, well, I mean, basically probability suggests that it should be a pretty decent intercept, higher grade-ish, let's say, but ultimately got to wait for the truth machine. But then, going back to this June 23rd news release, I mean, really that's the playbook because all that material is ahead, going to the lab. So we're going to see those first.
Right.
The 2025 stuff, we'll see after the fact.
Oh yeah,
So,
that's
again,
you got all that past stuff you got to send to the lab and
30,
get that
3,400 meters, and then plus we got another 60, up to 60,000 meters of drilling to do, and with lots of assays. So the pipeline is going to be chock a block full.
for months and months.
Yeah,
Roger, I appreciate your time, by the way. And before I let you go, I also wanted to talk about your in ownership of Goliath of McEwen Inc. Now it's called. It changed its name from McEwen Mining to McEwen Inc.
yes,
And before the show, I had to rush a report out because one of my top picks is McEwen Mining, and they're my top pick for a copper development company with a junior gold miner as a kicker.
yeah,
But when I was preparing, Trump announced that he's putting a 50% tariff on copper. So everybody thinks that that's going to cause the US, those that use the copper in the US, to buy a bunch of copper ahead of, and the supply chain is low. So copper went up into record highs.
yeah.
And there's not a lot of opportunities to invest in good copper stories. And so I thought that was a good reason to talk about your shareholding in McEwen Inc., which has this shareholding in a great or this ownership of a fantastic copper development project.
Yeah, no, we've got, we did that deal, I guess last year. Our cost base was, yeah, we took 10 million bucks worth. Our cost base is 1150. So we're up almost 3 million, close to $3 million on paper with
Wow.
that. So, which again, brings, cash flow to the company on a non, once we dispose of those shares at some particular point. I mean, we're not in the business of holding stocks of other companies,
Right.
but ultimately, it'll provide additional cash to the company without excess, additional dilution. So, which is a great thing.
Yeah, and especially if it keeps going up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen analysts, some are talking north of 20 kind of
Yeah.
thing, 20 to 25. So that would be a huge, huge pass. That would bring in, represent, you call it 10 million plus of additional value. So the $10 million investment, turns into $20 million of value to the company and the shareholders, which is great.
This is really exciting for me. One, because I like McEwen Mining so much, because you got gold, copper going up. There's a very bare, the copper development projects are, that cupboard is bare. They have one of the top 10 in the world based on size, grade, and it's in the lowest cost quartile.
Yeah.
But as copper's going up, they're within a very short period of time, the company's going to have a feasibility study done.
Yeah.
So, their timing is coming around to be really perfect. And that's a great situation for Goliath's interest in McEwen Inc.
I totally agree. And, obviously we're not doing anything until that happens. And, the IPO, I guess, in New York or in Toronto or wherever it might be. But ultimately, we got a very solid balance sheet. We don't need to be selling the stock tomorrow. But ultimately, we'd like to see a full value for it once the copper asset does IPO.
Yeah, so it's got some good catalysts there and some good news. And, not only is McEwen Inc. A big shareholder in Goliath, but Rob McEwen himself, who is a Canadian Hall of Fame miner who made a lot of his wealth from investing in mining
Yeah,
companies. He originally started investing at about 65 cents into Goliath.
yeah.
And his average cost base must be like 70 cents. So I think Rob McEwen is also a happy shareholder as well as McEwen Mining.
I think combined the two have kind of 9.3%. Similar kind of structure what they did or what Rob did as well as McEwen Mining on the Great Bear transaction.
Yes,
They being shareholders, I think they kind of own that 9%-ish level. Also happy shareholder, I'm sure would be Eric Sprott. He came in at 55 cents. It's never been underwater. Obviously, Crescat Capital have been
Crescat.
involved since December of 2020. I think their initial investment was at 25 cents. And then, more recently,
You got the Singapore fund in there. I think they're in at
Global,
about a buck 20-ish or something like
Global
that.
Commodity Group. Yeah, and they bought quite a bit of stock out of the market. So I think they're sitting around 7 million shares now.
Wow.
And then, Larry Childress, and then just
Yeah,
a new group that just took a good chunk of this latest financing is a big fund out of Toronto. They have about 4 billion under management. That's the Warta Capital Advisors. They've been in the market as well. I think they're sitting around 4% as well for long-term money, sticky hands. What they told me is they don't want to miss the next Great Bear, which obviously is music to my ears.
yeah. Well, maybe we'll be bigger than the next Great Bear.
Well, the way things are lining up, gold possibly, 4,000 here, 35 to 4 in a solid way. Great Bear at the time, that transaction was gold was what, 1,700
Yeah,
an ounce US. And then, back of the envelope, they think they had like sort of 4 to 5 million ounces with upside, maybe kind of around seven.
yeah.
They got taken over for what, 1.8 billion
Billion
Canadian.
Canadian. Yeah,
Currently we're trading at I don't know, was it 300 and some odd thousand here? Pardon me, 300 some odd million
million. Yeah,
market cap. Yeah, pardon me, missed a zero.
yeah.
Uh, but
Add another
anyways,
one on when someone tries to buy you, add another zero on the left side of that
sure,
decimal
sure.
point, Roger.
Yeah, always. Yeah, it's nice to more zeros on the on that side for sure. But anyway, so I mean, so God, whatever, $350 million Canadian market cap with potential of going much higher,
Yep.
goal going much higher. So, really the stars are aligned
Well,
here.
think
Uh,
about that too, Roger. We got gold going higher. Generalist investors are starting to come in,
yeah,
and I'm a hound looking for uh, gold explorers with important discoveries. And there is very few of those for generalist investors to look at. And when they
yeah,
look at something with a $375 million valuation, they kind of chuckle because they're used to, seeing companies trading $375 million worth of stock in a day.
yeah. I mean, we
Those
had
American generalists, this is peanuts.
okay, okay. I stand corrected. I just can't keep up with the quote here. Yeah, so right now we're sitting at about a $404 million market cap
Canadian.
Canadian
Okay, so
as we're chatting here,
what's
and
that like a
haven't done the
300?
math in a while, but with that, you know, uh, assuming we had something similar to a Great Bear, there's similar, there's potential to have significant upside from this particular juncture. And I think, with gold going higher, which I think it
Well,
will.
I don't know what ultimately is going to happen, Roger, but I kind of look at what's in the near term. You
Yeah.
got gold going up,
Yeah.
generalist investors coming into the gold stocks. And if they're looking for a gold explorer with an important discovery, they only have a menu of like five or
Yeah.
handful or two handfuls. And so, that kind of a wave could be really good for Goliath's valuation, especially when you're doing so much work and so much news to come out. So, I think that paints a pretty exciting near-term potential for the valuation.
I totally agree. And one of the things I wanted to mention earlier, I just remembered with this relogging we're doing. Remember, we were at 92% of the holes from last year had visible gold. We're actually at 94%
Oh my gosh.
VG. So 60 of the 64 holes from last year had visible gold.
Oh no.
Multiple occurrences or one, but or so it's
That's
pretty exciting.
just that doesn't happen, Roger.
No,
I've
no. Well,
been in exploration for 32 years, and I can't tell you where I've ever seen that happen before. And I got a pretty good memory for this stuff.
yeah. Well, clearly, we've tagged into what appears to be a mountain of gold. Like everywhere we drill, we got VG. I mean, it's incredible. And like you say, you don't see that very
Actually,
often.
I you made me think of something before. You see that mountain there, folks, that's behind Roger? You guys have a fantastic image. I think it's in your corporate presentation. And what it has is you have the drill hole traces with where the visible gold is in the drill hole traces. And it's pretty remarkable how widespread those visible gold occurrences are all in that mountain behind you, Roger.
Yeah, we put that actually in the last couple news releases as well,
Yeah,
just to show the distribution of
right.
the VG. So, like I say, it's this mountain is enhanced with a lot of VG, and clearly it looks to be like a lot of gold to be found and continue to be found. And and so we still don't know what the limits are. It does remain open in all directions, and
And new
we're gonna have to see
surprises coming along every year, Roger.
exactly.
That gets
That's
back to my old Bob Darney effect. He always told me, my geologist mentor, he said, every project starts out with a big anomaly, big geophysics, big geochem. But when you drill them, they get smaller and smaller and smaller. Where mines are different. The more you drill them and the more science you get at, they get better and better. And along the way, they have pleasant surprises as well. Well, you know, it just keeps happening every year, year after year after year, at your Sherbet discovery. And, that gives me a little bit of goosebumps, with my Bob Darney effect.
Yeah, no, it's the more we drill, the bigger it gets, Alan, which is a nice thing, and we still don't know how big it is.
You haven't got to the edges of it yet, or even found all the new discoveries along the way, Roger.
I know. It's I call it the first inning of a very long ball game.
All righty. Did you have any closing comments, or did we give them enough to talk about today, Roger?
I think there's plenty there.
All right.
I just wanted to get that from the 92, we're up at 94% of the
Wow.
2024 holes with VG. So I would expect similar type of results for this year as well, based on uh, the past and the recent relogging.
Well, you've certainly hit the ground running in the 2025 season. And folks, this is just the start of the flow of news to come out. And for several months into the future, you can expect to keep seeing more news. So I'm very excited about that, Roger.
I am as well. The whole team's excited, and they're giving her.
All righty. Well, there you go, folks. As always, do your homework, speak with your financial advisors before making any investment decisions, and go to the company's website and look for that image that has the visible gold distribution inside the mountain behind Roger's head there. And bear in mind that this system, they're still at the sort of at the tip of the iceberg, if you will. Think of that mountain as a upside down iceberg, or that's the top of the iceberg, and they haven't even got to the source of where it's all coming from yet. And all indications from the truth machine, this isn't my hopeful, wishful thinking. It's what the truth machine is telling us from a scientific perspective. The source, all evidence is pointing towards that being a big, powerful, high grade source that's brought all that gold into that mountain. On that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.